Welcome. 12 years of war. On the 20th of February 2014, this was the official date which was recognized by the Ukrainian parliament, the date of the start of the war of Russian Federation against Ukraine. That is when Putin made this infamous medal for the illegal capture of Crimea. Putin had started preparing for this much earlier, 2003, the Isle of Tuzla, when President Kuchma showed to the whole world that Ukraine is not going to accept redrawing of borders. 2004, the Ukrainian revolution, when the war criminal Putin welcomed and greeted his pro-Russian president Yanukovych with the victory, which was non-existent. 2013, when Putin thought that the revolution would not happen and Ukraine would fall, but Ukraine showed how we can fight for our independence. Now in the world there are broad discussions that the epoch of the world order has come to an end, and it has happened just now. But I disagree with that. The world order started at the time when Putin started the annexation of Crimea, and before that when he launched aggression against Georgia. All the international documents related to inviolability of borders, 1975, at that time a trip to Helsinki would take 1 hour. But later it transpired that borders can be violated, just like the Charter of the UN and a number of bilateral agreements, including the large-scale Ukraine-Russia agreement, in which Russia recognized our territorial integrity. And it's been proven that if there's no enforcement mechanism, none of the agreements stand. What was the reaction of the West to the illegal annexation of Crimea and the war which started in 2014? There was an attempt at a dialogue, but Putin accepted the attempt at a dialogue as an attempt of appeasement. This had happened before the Second World War, and it is this appeasement which led to the full-scale aggression of 2022.
Коли розпочалася війна 22-го року,
when the war of 2022 started, the West reacted differently. It showed an unprecedented unity of the Western world. Putin did not expect that. There were sanctions and unified front against the tyrant. Ukraine became an example of a fight for independence and world order, the remnants of the world order. When sanctions were implemented and the West showed its unity and force, we should have realized that we live in a new world, and in that new world, Russia was not the only one who wanted to change the world order. A new axis of evil came to be. In this axis, China is a key ally of Russia, plus North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, and other totalitarian regimes that want to redraw the borders. And the fact that Ukraine is fighting together with our Western allies thwarts their plans. Yesterday, an agreement came to an end, the agreement on the strategic arms limitations, the so-called START, and now we can encounter new examples of proliferation and stockpiling of nuclear weapons. I believe that Russia basically used the nuclear weapons because the threat of the use is also relevant. In 2022, it made an impact on the calculus of the American administration, and Russia said that they were ready to use nuclear weapons. And the violation of non-proliferation happened in 2014. I will remind you about the Budapest Memorandum when the nuclear Russia launched an aggression against a nuclear-free country which had unilaterally and voluntarily relinquished the third nuclear arsenal in the world. So where do we stand now? 19% of the Ukrainian territory has been occupied. More than 1 million of killed and wounded Russian soldiers. The Russian defense industry and the Russian economy and Russian finance are in dire straits. Discussions are underway that Russia can attack NATO countries. Ukraine has done everything possible to defend itself and to make sure that Russia cannot attack NATO allies. Russia is not capable of doing this now. So the main thing that happened, Ukraine has withstood as an independent and sovereign state. And the future of the world will depend on how this war is going to end. It should end in definitely and exclusively victory of Ukraine. I emphasize the word victory of Ukraine. So what's next? And this is the topic of our discussion. I believe that the basic scenario, unfortunately, is that the hostilities will continue. Russia has spent for the war over the last 12 years $350 billion more than Ukraine and its allies. And today the intelligence service of Germany made it public that Russian expenditures for war are 66% higher than what is publicly admitted by Russia. Putin is not prepared for any realistic talks, and if you take a look at the composition of their negotiation teams, this is basically something new that the military basically are engaged in diplomatic talks. For me, this is an indication of the fact that Russia is not prepared to put an end to this war, and they don't want peace. Another scenario is a temporary truce or ceasefire, and to attain that we need to fulfill several tasks. We need to keep our allies, and primarily the U.S., on the right side of history. Without the Americans, it would be difficult for us to prevail in this war. So the task number one is unity between the U.S. and Ukraine. Secondly, financial and military assistance. We welcome the decision of our European partners to allocate 90 billion for Ukrainian purposes. This shows that Europe is ready to support Ukraine on this way. The third task is further sanctions against Russia. Russia should be deprived of the resource to prosecute war further. Number four, providing Ukraine with necessary weapons. I believe that time will come when the American administration will understand that they should not just sell weapons to Ukraine, but should be provided with another package of military assistance the way the previous administration did. And definitely, this is about the unity within Ukraine. I believe that our government is proceeding with the negotiations correctly, and the key point in the negotiations is to be on the same page with American and European partners. So far, we've been successful in that. The war has been going on for 12 years. This is twice the time of a world war. He wanted to capture Ukraine in 2014 and in 2022, and he failed on both occasions. And he's not going to be able to capture Ukraine if we continue the way we've been doing so far. United and strong. The world order seems to have been crumbled, but we still can save it. And the only recipe for this is to make sure that Ukraine wins, and Ukraine will prevail.